If you look closely at a massive brick building, you realize it is constructed entirely of individual bricks stacked together. Life is built the exact same way. Whether a blue whale or a living leaf, every organism is constructed from a microscopic building block, the cell. Some organisms, like bacteria, spend their existence as a single self-contained unit. We call them unicellular. But you, me, and the trees are multicellular, relying on trillions of individual units working together. As this flowchart shows, single cells do not just stack, they organize. They multiply into tissues. Those tissues fold and weave to build specific organs, like your heart or lungs. Those organs then collaborate to create the entire living body. This microscopic world provides the literal structural framework for every visible organism on Earth. In 1665, English scientist Robert Hooke examined a slice of cork. Looking at his drawing, notice the geometric empty chambers marked B. He called them cells after small monastery rooms, though they were just hollow remnants of dead plants. Hooke relied on this specific instrument. Notice the ornate wooden and leather barrel of his early compound microscope. It was cutting edge, but limited in power. A few years later, a Dutch tradesman named Antony van Leeuwenhoek analyzed pond water and dental scrapings. This drawing illustrates his findings, moving, bizarrely shaped structures he called animalcumuscule. He was the first person to witness living cells in motion. His tool was surprisingly simple. Notice the tiny glass bead lens embedded right in this brass plate. It achieved far greater magnification than Hooke's setup. By the 19th century, scientists like the one in this portrait, along with researchers Schleiden, Schwann, and Virchow, compiled these observations into the cell theory. They concluded that all plants and animals are made of cells, and that new cells arise exclusively from existing ones. Life does not generate spontaneously. Every organism today exists because of a continuous chain of cell divisions, unbroken for nearly 4 billion years. A single cell functions like a highly automated factory. The first line of defense is the plasma membrane. It acts as the bodyguard, a selectively permeable barrier that dictates exactly what is allowed to enter and exit. This animation shows one-way materials cross that border, passive transport. Notice how these blue particles drift effortlessly from the densely packed outside area into the empty area. Whether it is diffusion for gases or osmosis for liquids, this flow from high to low concentration happens naturally, without the cell spending any energy. But sometimes the cell needs to pull materials against that natural flow. Watch how these mechanical pumps use glowing energy icons to force red particles from a low concentration area into a high one. This is active transport, and it requires the cell to spend ATP, the molecule that serves as the primary energy currency for all cellular processes. Once inside, everything floats in the cytoplasm, a jelly-like fluid that makes up the factory floor and supports all the internal machinery. Sitting safely in the center is the nucleus, the command center of the operation. Inside this headquarters sits the master blueprint for the entire organism, DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. This is the thread-like molecule carrying the exact genetic instructions required to build and maintain you. The cell maintains its perimeter with strict precision while executing orders from this secure genetic database. Right outside the headquarters is the manufacturing plant. As you can see in this diagram, the endoplasmic reticulum is a complex, folding maze of tubular factoring lines expanding directly outward from the nucleus. There are two distinct assembly lines at work here. Zooming into the rough section, you can see it is studded with tiny workers called ribosomes, which are busy producing geometric protein blocks. Panning over to the smooth tubular section, which lacks ribosomes, the factory shifts to producing circular lipid droplets, or fats. Once those proteins and lipids are built, they need to be processed and shipped. That is where the Golgi apparatus steps in. The Golgi acts as the cell's delivery agent. It receives the raw products from the endoplasmic reticulum, meticulously packages them into vesicles, modifies them if necessary, and dispatches them to their exact destinations. Genetic instructions are translated into physical building blocks and shipped out to keep the machinery of life running without delay. None of this machinery works without power. Look at this dynamic, glowing internal view of a mitochondrion. As energy pulses along its folded inner membranes, it churns out the ATP energy the cell needs to survive. But the mitochondrion operates by its own rules. Unlike the rest of the factory, it possesses its very own DNA and ribosomes, completely independent of the main nucleus. This allows it to manufacture its own proteins and replicate itself on its own schedule. Manufacturing inevitably creates waste, and sometimes the factory machinery breaks down or becomes infected. Enter the cell's waste disposal team, the lysosomes, also known as suicide bags. If a cell suffers severe damage, the lysosome takes drastic action. Watch as this sac-like structure bursts open, releasing a wave of highly reactive digestive enzymes that rapidly dissolves the surrounding damaged cellular structures into nothingness. The cell powers its own survival at all costs, but is capable of self-destructing to protect the larger organism from spreading disease or malfunction. Animals can run from predators, seek shelter from weather, and physically move to survive. Plants are completely immobile. To survive without the ability to move, nature provided plant cells with an extreme structural upgrade, a rigid external reinforcement. This animation shows that security system in action, the cell wall. Made of a tough carbohydrate called cellulose, it provides absolute rigidity. Even as this plant cell rapidly swells with blue water, it is held firmly intact by that thick green perimeter. Without it, the cell would burst under the internal pressure. By sacrificing mobility for impenetrable defense, plant cells gain the structural strength needed to grow tall and survive the elements. Because of this immobility, plant and animal cells handle storage differently. On the left side of this split screen, you see a massive central vacuole inside a plant cell. It stores water and nutrients to maintain the plant's internal pressure. On the right, the animal cell only requires small, scattered vacuoles for its needs. Plants also possess a specialized feature for energy production. As the visual highlights, glowing green chloroplasts appear only on the plant cell side. These specialized organelles capture sunlight to generate food directly from light. But animal cells have their own specialized tools. Notice the glowing centrosomes appearing exclusively on the animal cell side. These structures are designed specifically to help the animal cell safely divide and replicate its DNA. Right now, trillions of these microscopic factories are operating inside you. Look at this biological landscape. Millions of distinct cells are communicating and working in unison at this exact second to keep the larger organism functioning. This hidden coordination is what allows complex life to exist. The next time you look at a plant or into a mirror, you are seeing the collective result of trillions of these machines working together. If you enjoyed this look at the foundation of life, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.